Those are still things that I have to internally like deal with on a daily basis. And like I just said a couple minutes ago, change is ultimately the goal. Like you want change to happen. About this past month is that it's been 10 years since I started this journey on the internet. It was, I think, January 4th, 2012 when I started my book blog, and I did that for 2 years, and then eventually I started a YouTube channel about books, and then years later when I was in university I started this channel that is now what you know as more of like a lifestyle channel. But it all started with that book blog, and sometimes it really just hits me how that decision that I made at, I guess, 15, that decision has had such a ripple effect. And what would I be doing if I hadn't started that? It's wild too, because I feel like I can't stress enough the fact that I do this for a living makes zero sense. I was such a driven kid academically, very focused on getting the top grade possible and beating myself up if I feel like I didn't perform how I should have. My parents always talk about the fact that when I was in elementary school at a young age, I once forgot to bring home my reading homework, and I started crying, and they were like, who is this kid? Like, why is she crying because she forgot her homework? And that's just like the type of like kid slash like teen I was. So focused on that. It was really only in university where I really feel like I dismantled a lot of beliefs that I just naturally had growing up about where I got my sense of value from. I'm definitely a type A planner, organizer, liking some sort of sense of control over my life, and this is just a job that is the opposite of that. There's no structure, there's no like, hey, you gotta do A, B, C to get to D. It's up to me to kind of guide myself where I think is right, but there's no like right answer to next steps I take. Like, it's just a lot of ambiguity, and I sometimes am just like baffled that I'm okay with that. I guess I'm so happy that I am, because what I would miss out on if I couldn't handle it. This puzzle is also very complicated because the pieces change kind of color. That's a bad example, but they kind of change design as you tilt them. So this is gonna be a whole thing. In a large way, like, I know that this is part of the experience of being in your 20s is kind of working through who you actually are and who you want to be. Kind of in my feels right now about how beautiful that is, that experience of growing and evolving. And I guess it just makes me think like what other shifts are in store for me, because I know that 35-year-old me is going to be sitting down, maybe doing a puzzle too, and thinking about, whoa, what a change. And that's one of the beautiful parts about aging, is I think getting to see how the puzzle pieces fit together. Wasn't expecting to make that analogy, but I'll go with it. A little bit later in the day, and I actually just got the phone with someone at my network who had news that she was taking an opportunity at a new job. And we had a conversation just like quickly about how change can be really scary, but it's inevitable. It's like an inevitable part of the process. And I feel like that's another thing that, as I have been dwelling on New Year's stuff and like birthday stuff, January is always a very like complicated month for me for that reason. But as I've been in this period, it's like one of the things that I feel like has come up, and has come up a lot even this year, that I've had many conversations even with my mom about, is how sometimes you really want to resist change happening, and it can be it can be scary like when it's happening to you, but it can also be scary when it's happening around you, when you feel like other people are making shifts or are making decisions that you're like, oh, that would move them physically from me, or that this moves them in a more like different life stage than me, and fearing like what that will mean for your relationship going forward, and also mourning the fact that what is right now won't be the case for very long, like it's temporary. And that idea, it's temporary, is something I really try and remind myself, because like that's why it's so important to be present in your relationships and in your everyday life, in your situation. Like I think so much of that when it comes to me living in this apartment. I look around and I feel so grateful to live here, and I love living here, but I know one day like I'm not gonna live here, and I'm gonna really miss this phase of my life that I'm in right now, where I'm independent and I'm working at a job that I really love, and my friends are able to come visit, and we're having these experiences together. But that will change as people get into relationships, as people, you know, start families. There's just a lot of good changes to look forward to ahead. But I would be lying if I would say that there's not always a part of me that wishes that we could just hang out here in the now for a little bit longer. I'm gonna start crying. Suck it in, Caitlin. Suck it in. Like I just said a couple minutes ago, change is ultimately the goal. Like you want change to happen. That's where life experiences happen. That's where the adventure is. I think it just ultimately inspires me to really appreciate what's happening in the moment, to not take it for granted, to soak it in, and to not keep pushing yourself for like that next step, or fixating on moving forward, because you don't get this back, right? With 25 specifically, I think it's a really weird period after everyone's kind of wrapping up school. I mean, some people are still in school, but some people are fully into their career, some people are not. Some people, I have a friend who's engaged, I have a lot of friends who are single, people living at home, people living on their own, people moving to different areas. Like, it's just a lot of shifts happening at once, and all that can be a bit overwhelming at times, even though it's ultimately you know, something you want for everyone. This is me just being introspective. I don't even know if it made sense there. That this might be a part that gets left out of the video. We shall see. I need to get off the tile. I don't know why I thought this was the place to have a chit chat, but alas. Good morning. Bon dia. What's up? I start getting ready for the day and do my makeup. I actually got a really good sleep last night, which hasn't been happening the past couple weeks, so I'm thankful for that. You know, on the topic of makeup and I guess like beauty in general, I think one of the things I think about a lot is just it kind of tying back to like when I started YouTube, which would have been 8 years ago. Another reason why I think it's so shocking that I started YouTube at that time was because I know I was like in a really tough spot with my sense of like self and my insecurities. And it's not like I outwardly like necessarily showcase that all the time, but like I remember having like such a horrible time with public speaking because I didn't want the attention to be on me, and I felt like if people are looking at me, then they're focusing on things that I'm insecure about. And I just think there was just a lot of like background noise happening in my brain, related to my body, related to features on my face, like my nose, that I like had a hard time kind of accepting at that time. And those are still things that I have to internally like deal with on a daily basis and figure out like how to have a more loving relationship towards. I've been like kind of embracing the I don't need to love everything about myself, because I think that's really an unrealistic goal, to be like, oh, I'm just gonna turn all my insecurities into things that like I adore and we're gonna make them like this positive thing. But that's really sometimes a tough ask, you know? And I don't think it's like wrong to like certain parts of yourself, like in a physical sense. I'm talking more physically, more than others, but I guess this applies for like emotional personality stuff as well. But I do think it's important to like find love for them. So finding love is like, well, how can I shift this around and think about this in from a different perspective? And that has been like a powerful exercise for me in just getting me more comfortable with the fact that I have, like, especially with my nose, like features that are different. Not to say that I'm always like happy about that, if I'm being honest, but it's my face, it's my body. It's like I gotta show appreciation for the fact that like I get to exist, and that's only because my body allows me to do that. So I think it's so easy to focus on the things like the negative, and I find that you have to kind of like challenge yourself to view things differently, or else those thoughts can consume you. And I say that as someone who, you know, still is very much so on my self-love journey. But that being said, I think it's always a journey. What's the end goal here? There's always going to be something that you're kind of struggling with internally. I don't think anyone has like, you know, the most perfect sense of self where they don't have any things that they don't like about themselves. I think it's a pretty shared human experience, which I find very comforting. I think a lot of people would think that being on YouTube would potentially create a situation, or being on social media as often as I am, create a situation where I'm have a worse sense of self, because I could potentially be comparing myself to all these filtered images of other creators and blah blah blah. But I actually have felt like creating YouTube videos helped me become a lot more comfortable in my skin, because I see so many hours of footage of myself. And when you think about it, a lot of us, like I hear from a lot of people, when they see themselves on camera or when they hear their voice, they see photos of themselves, they don't like what they see, or they're like, yeah, it's unsettling, because you're not usually confronted with that kind of content about yourself. You're not usually seeing yourself from that perspective. You're navigating your world from your own POV. But I guess because I've been doing this for so long, I've seen so many hours and hours and hours of footage of myself from different angles of my body, of my face, in the morning after I wake up, after I've glammed for the day. You know, it, like, just in every scenario, I feel like I've seen the way I look. And the comforting part about it is that I know that even if I see a bad photo or a clip from a video that I'm unhappy with, there's just as many clips and photos of myself that I do really love. I think when you are, especially in a video-based type of content, you're getting more than just like a still image. I get to see myself when I'm talking about things that I'm passionate about and things I love. And like, as cheesy as it sounds, those are the times when I know I look the most beautiful on camera, because I see myself. I'm like, that's me looking my best when I'm in a good internal headspace of like just pure enthusiasm, pure joy, excited, happy. Cheesy to think, but what is happening internally, at least I think for me, and I would assume for a lot of people, does like play a part in like how you're just viewed. Not to say I still don't have my not so great days, and there are times where, you know, you don't feel like that confident or that on top of it. But I do think this has been like a huge part of me getting into a healthier headspace with how I view myself. It's just something I think about occasionally, because when you are in a career that is so focused on the visual, even though like my videos aren't about necessarily how I look, it's usually about I'm more focused on the content I'm talking about, but the vessel that the message is coming through sometimes gets put into critique. And I can see how you would be in this space and that might be a negative thing for you, but I really do think it has been a really positive one for me personally. It's definitely a topic that I feel like I'd like to explore a little bit more and talk more in depth about. I think what's tough with me with talking about my struggles with like, I know like my nose specifically, is I have a very complicated relationship with it. I want to make sure that I'm talking about my journey in a realistic way. I don't want to like BS and say, oh, here's how I learned to love myself, but I also don't want to be like, oh, I struggle with this to the point where I just don't think I'm beautiful, which is also not the case. I think it's possible to look at yourself and say, I'm beautiful and I have a lot of things to appreciate, and also be uncomfortable with certain parts that make up that beauty. It's just a weird thing to try and communicate. I'm not doing the best job about it right now, but maybe something we can explore in the future a little bit more. Okay, after all that talking, let's keep it a little bit lighter. This is my outfit for the day, which I find very amusing. I've got my Align leggings on, Abercrombie bralette, and a Aritzia blazer. I figure if I have to talk to anyone, we'll just keep it like up there. Just need to be comfy today because I am perioding. Ignore my haul of clothes there. I always, by the way, like keep the tags on new clothes on there for as long as possible so I can really decide if I like the item or if I'm being bamboozled by the rush of a package coming in. Although I will say, I think I may have found jean shorts for the first time in years. I have hips and a butt, and it is often impossible to find jean shorts that fit and that I feel comfortable with while still being trendy and cute. So I think this might be the answer. We shall see. You know, like that's another area. I didn't really chit chat too much about that while I was getting ready. I'm gonna put on some jewelry just to spice up this outfit a bit. But my body shape, definitely when I was younger, was something that was a big conundrum. Oh no, I don't wanna lose the charm. Let's try this again. And I feel like because I have been working out more in 2021, my body, I personally don't weigh myself, I don't measure myself, I don't do any of that, but I feel stronger and I feel more interested in trying clothing items that I used to not really consider. So that's exciting. Clothing has been like one of my favorite things to explore for as long as I can remember, because I know how powerful it can make you feel when you're wearing an outfit that you just feel like you can own the world in. So I feel like because I've been more comfortable just trying different pieces, it's opened up and unlocked different parts of my personality that have been fun to explore too. I'm also going to accessorize with the scent. These are the two scents I really gravitate towards. I have gone through, I think, 2 bottles of Black Opium by YSL. I'm not good at describing scents, but both of these scents are like dark, sexy, just something enticing about both of them that I really like. This one is like the newest one that I've gotten. It's funny, I will like put on perfume before I even film videos because I just think it's a very powerful way to channel different energy. And I personally adore when you put on a sweater that you may have worn earlier in the week or at another time and you can smell the perfume on it. Yes, I love it when I can like smell Black Opium on my crew necks or a shirt that I'm wearing again. The puzzle has yet to be completed, but I need to do that today because otherwise it will stay there until I come back from my hometown. The other day I posted a blog post titled Books I Can't Stop Thinking About, and it included these 3 right here: Talking Across the Divide, The Defining Decade, and In the Flow. So I won't go over these too much because I have talked about them briefly on the channel before, and I kind of have little blurbs about my thoughts on them on the blog post that will be linked down below. I'm still tackling Think Like a Breadwinner by Jennifer Barrett. I'm about 100 or so pages in, and so far I'm liking it. One of the things she talks about is the differences in the way investing is talked about towards women versus men. Like with men, it's, you know, investing in real estate, investing in stocks, investing in Airbnbs, true investment vehicles. Whereas with women, the conversation often is about investing into pieces in your wardrobe, or investing in your skincare, or investing in your health. Like, it's different the way that word is used. And the whole point, like she's trying to emphasize there, is that women in general are just not encouraged in the same way as men to invest and to, you know, take control of their finances and really make them grow in an impactful way, which can leave women behind if they're not focusing on that. Very interesting stuff. We'll have to report back though formally once I complete it. When I think about the things and the people in my life that have had the most impact on the way I view the world, books are absolutely at the top of that list. I think they've had huge influence over how I see things and how I relate to people, both nonfiction and fiction, but especially fiction, because over my lifetime I've read a lot of fiction books, and when you're reading a fiction book, you're getting the opportunity to deep dive and consume yourself with this one person, or sometimes in multiple POVs, multiple people's thought process that have different backgrounds than you, that have different personalities than you, that see the world differently, maybe have different values. I think repeating that process over and over and over again has really built this instinct of empathy when I'm confronted with the world. I feel like I can annoyingly sometimes always want to understand everyone's perspective in a situation, which this particular couple years has been quite exhausting to operate in that headspace. But I do think it's such a valuable tool to have in your life toolkit, because it's so easy to oversimplify problems and judge people. And I don't want to be that person, even though, like, you know, I'm susceptible to it as well. But nonetheless, I think reading has taught me that in a really like subconscious way to operate in that headspace, and I'm really grateful for that, because it's a personality trait that I always really admire in other people when I see it, because I don't think it's always the easiest or sexiest thing to do. I feel like I would be a different person if I wasn't a reader. I know it sounds like very dramatic and a little eye-rolly to say, but I don't know, they've had a huge influence. Obviously, there are lots of ways that we build our sense of navigating the world. Books not the only one, or the only one that is in my life, but it's one of my favorite ones, I gotta say. Shocker, not to drop an absolute plot twist on you, but Caitlin likes books. News, I know.
Happy birthday to you. Hoje é dia de festa, então é nossa palmas. Parabéns, Caitlin, uma salva de palmas. Tenha muitos anos.
Oh, thank you guys. Well, I've officially been 25 for a couple days and can confirm I feel no different. Very representative of what it can feel like to hit milestones, is I always find the lead up to them is so much build up, and then they happen and you're just sitting there thinking to yourself, okay. That's one of the things I really love about milestones, is I think it just forces you to be a little introspective, reflective, have that pause button moment in a world where it just feels like we're constantly going. For me, I think this next year is going to continue, though, a lot of the thought processes that I was going through in the week leading up to my birthday. So although I don't have these specific must-hit plans for this next half of my 20s, I do want to be very intentional about it, and I'm just looking forward to what's next. This particular birthday was also really special to spend at home. It was a day filled with being surrounded by people that I love and speaking and communicating, whether it was on the phone, in person, virtually, with people that I adore. And I just felt really I just felt really loved on my birthday, and I think that is ultimately the best gift of all, is just feeling like you have a community behind you supporting you. And it makes the next years feel a lot less scary, because I know I've got a great team behind me, including you, who have joined for however long on my internet journey. I have felt so much, you know, positive vibes directed my way throughout these years, and I can't thank you enough for following what's happened so far, for continuing to follow along to see what's next. I've got lots more discussions to have this year revolving around change and money and confidence, insecurities, fashion, and books. Like, I don't know, I feel like I tackled a lot of pockets of thoughts in this video. Sometimes your brain just like wants to go all over the place, and I feel like the kinds of conversations I was having on camera this week was really showcasing that. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to like this video, subscribe, hit notification bell, you know, all the things. And I'm gonna go spend some more time with the familia. Oh my goodness, and we're ending today's video where my YouTube journey all began 8 years ago. Poetic, if I do say so myself. Toodles.
Conselho é aquele.